Welcome to the Fight Night Daily Podcast. It's a Liam Smith versus Chris Eubank Jr. 2, and I'm joined by Mr. John Rawling. John, we've just been at the press conference. What did you take from him? I mean, I spoke to Chris Eubank Jr. yesterday. We'll get into that. And we spoke to Liam Smith today, but what did you take from the press conference?
Well, Chris always talks brilliantly, doesn't he? I mean, if you shut your eyes, he sounds like so much like his dad, doesn't he? And he's very, very articulate, you know. And he certainly spoke a very good fight, and he's very persuasive when you hear about how his preparations are different and how he's made small changes, and he's going to get it right this time. Liam, by way of contrast, he didn't really say a lot, did he? He was a man of few words, and it was kind of as he said to you when he sat down and chatted to you afterwards. He was just saying, "Well, we'll see come Saturday night." I think he's probably thinking. I think the camp are probably thinking, "You've already seen the fight." He said afterwards he couldn't believe how easy it was first time around, and I honestly believe they're thinking that there'll just be more of the same.
Well, John, you touched on it with me earlier on, and you was talking about the punch resistance of Chris Eubank Jr. in that one. You know, in previous fights that we've seen he's had an iron chin, a granite chin in many ways, like a chip off the old block, the DNA of his old man. But what was it so different? Was it the weight making? I mean, you made a valuable point about when he was boxing Conor Benn, the way that he went, you know, he was dropping so low in weight, and it can affect a fighter like Roy Jones, when he boxed Antonio Tarver after going up with John Ruiz, coming back down, the punch resistance was never the same. Did it have that sort of effect on him?
It had that sort of look about it, didn't it? I mean, I think with Roy Jones, and indeed with Chris Eubank, so much of their success revolved around reactions, and as you get older, that inevitably is not what it once was, and going up and down with weights doesn't help either. And we saw the photographs of when he was prepared to fight Conor Benn, when he was down at 157 or whatever it was, and he looked, and I don't say this lightly, he looked appalling, didn't he? He looked like somebody who'd come out of a concentration camp, like those awful wartime pictures.
But you feel like that has a lasting effect, John?
It could well have done, and you know, I mean, maybe this time he has got it right. And certainly if you listen to what Chris is saying, he's going to go out and show the fighter that he really is, and he's going to go out there and school him. But there's an equally persuasive argument, Spenny, that Chris Eubank could be a shot fighter. Yeah,
I mean, that's what I asked Liam Smith, actually. And funny, I was speaking to, let me get into Chris Eubank Jr., speaking to him after the workout yesterday, and he looked great. He did look down on the weight again, though, but he looked physically great, and he was going through the moves, didn't show us too much, but I asked him, and he gave me an answer that I've never really heard from Chris, and it was an honest answer, to be fair. I said to him, Chris, you know, after, you know, the last fight and the way that it was so conclusive in the manner that you got defeated, how do you turn this around, and do you feel the pressure of that? And he said to me, Spence, I feel like my back's up against the wall. For the first time in my life, I feel that there is pressure on me. Yeah. Do you think that will work in his advantage? Some fighters feed off that pressure. Do you think he could be one of those guys?
Well, he's going to have to, isn't he? He really is going to have to, because if he loses this, and particularly if he loses badly again, it's hard to see where Chris goes. Maybe he's got somewhere down the line a fight against Conor Benn, but as a genuine world-class operator, if he loses badly for a second time to Liam, then you know where does he go? Sure. And we talked there about whether or not his punch resistance is what it was. What happened, what you take from that first fight, is that he made Liam Smith look like a formidable puncher, didn't he? I mean, he went out there and made him look like Julian Jackson or something. Sure. He made him look like a real banger. And I've watched Liam Smith for many, many times over the years, and he trades on toughness rather than big one-punch knockout power. And Chris Eubank in that first fight made him look like a real banger. Yeah. And from those who are looking for Eubank as a potential winner, I think that is a worrying fact.
Well, do you know what? The mad thing about it was, we was at the open workout yesterday, and there was thousands of people out there, and probably 50% of them, and they were local, so a lot of them were, you know, Liam Smith fans probably, were saying that actually they felt that Chris Eubank Jr. was going to win the fight. They don't know why they felt that, but they felt that he was going to win the fight. I mean, I don't know what basis they're going on. I'm just saying the public perception is that. Now, you know, Liam Smith is one of those fighters. He said, listen, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I haven't got to fix anything. He cuts it. But I think a lot of people are going on the first 2 or 3 rounds of the first fight that they had, where Eubank was doing well, especially in the 3rd round. He started landing the uppercut. But you know, notoriously, Liam Smith gives those rounds away.
And he was never in trouble, Spaddy.
But
he wasn't in trouble.
Rounds away whilst he's working his opponent out, and then he turns the screw the way that he does. You know, and like you say, he was never in trouble at all. So I don't know what basis they really go on in that. I want to talk to you about Bomac and you know, the changes that Eubank Jr has made, and he has had to make changes. One, he said he's brought in a nutritionist, which is massively important, which suggests that he is tight at the weight. And 2, that he's gone over with Bomac, Brian McIntyre, who trains the likes of Terence Crawford. But only 6 weeks, John. I'm not sure that's going to be enough either.
Well, he's not going to reinvent him, is he?
No.
You know, in that space of time, he's not going to make him a different fighter. I think what he has done is just remind him of the basics. You know, just go through what he knows and refresh him and give confidence that what he knows is actually enough to win the fight. I was speaking to Ronnie Davis, who's ever is part of the camp, and he said, well, first time round he messed up his preparations, he didn't do the weight right. And you mentioned the nutritionist. This time he says he has done it right. I don't think that Bomac, for all the fact that he's had this fantastic resume with Bud Crawford, that he's going to make him into a different fighter. That's not going to happen. But he maybe has just reminded him on some of the basics which have served him well over the years, and just get him to believe that he's got what it takes.
Well, that's exactly what Bomac said to me yesterday when I spoke to him yesterday as well. I said, listen, all that confusion, you know, we haven't got a lot of time to turn things around it, etc. He's gone from Roy Jones and boxing like Roy Jones. There's a lot of things that he's changing, and Bomac said exactly what you just said there. He said, basically, we're stripping it back, going back to basics, and that's exactly where we're at with it, and that's what Chris needs. He said, it's all about staying switched on for 3 minutes of each round, because if he switches off, as we know, Liam Smith is dangerous, sit in the pocket, he fires back, and that's where he's dangerous.
He needs to stop thinking about fighting like Roy Jones. There was only one guy who fought like Roy Jones, the man himself. And even Anno Domini, the one opponent who you can't beat, it caught up with him in the end. And he needs to just fight a more simple style, I think. And if Eubank's going to win it, then that's the way it has to be. And by the way, the bookies, who don't often get it wrong, have got Liam as a 6-4 on favourite.
Well, I can't see how you wouldn't with the manner in the fight, the way the last fight went, and you saw there with Liam, he's got that bit between his teeth. Do you read anything into this, the postponements of the fights, you know, the back injury that Liam had? Do you think that he's fully over that now? You know, apparently training's gone very well. Do you read anything into Eubanks talking about that?
He looks pretty good to me. You know, as far as you can tell by somebody's body language, I think Liam looks in terrific shape. You know, he really does look well. And I also love to see a fighter with silver hair doing so well. The guy's greyer than me.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because he's very silver, isn't he? For a guy that's as young as he is, his hair's gone very silver. But listen, we saw the weigh-in, the press conference there. You know, I think both guys look very good. They handled it well. But what we see tomorrow at the weigh-in is reality kicks in. John, then you see what it's like. You look like you have a look at what they look like on the scales. I think all the eyes are going to be on Chris Eubank. Does he look tight at the weight? Does he look drawn on the weight? Is the punch resistance still there? What we're going to do, John, is we're going to find that out tomorrow. We've seen what we've seen today. Both guys look in good form. And you can catch this Fight Night Daily podcast tomorrow. We're at the weigh-in.